Shavua Tov, a gute Woche, and welcome to our program. This is the broadcast right after Purim, and it's the Shabbos after Purim. And the Rebbe brings many times from the Zohar that all the days of the week have an aliyah, have an elevation in the Shabbos. And this is the Shabbos that includes all the days of the week, including the day of Purim and Shushan Purim. As a matter of fact, Shushan Purim is already Wednesday, and Wednesday the Gemara says it's Komei Shabse. It's before Shabbos. We already say them kleinem lechundanano. We say the small lechundanano. So this is a continuation of the Purim Farbringen. In terms of the customary story, since today is Chai Oder. Chai Oder is the Yotzat of my mother, Mother's Yehudis, Basarava the Menachem Mendel. So we will dedicate this program Lilu Nishmoso, and the stories have to do with, are in connection with our mother. In 1947, the Rebbe was in Paris for 3 months, as known, and he would visit his mother, the Rebbetzin Chana, every day 2 times. The Rebbetzin Chana lived in our house together with us on 10 Rue Dieu, which means 10 Rue Dieu. And the apartment we had, it was the house that belonged to our uncle, the Zalman Schneerson, who just before went to the United States in the interest of his institutions. And the apartment that was allotted to us was on the 3rd floor that had 3 rooms. The middle room was a dining room, and then on both sides were bedrooms. When we came, we allocated one of those 3 rooms to a Rebbetzin Chana. So there was the dining room in the middle, the bedroom on one side, and there's one room that we always called all the years. We were in Paris in 1954. This was called the Rebbetzin Chana's room. And not only that, that room had an entrance from the dining room. It had also had an entrance straight to the hallway. So when the Rebbetzin Chana wanted to go from the hallway to the shul was about 25 feet away. She did not have to go through the dining room. She was able to go straight from the hallway. And as mentioned, the Rebbe would come 2 times a day to see his mother, and they would meet in our dining room. And our mother, Aleh Shalom, had the schus of serving them for 3 months, 2 times a day, besides Shabbosim and Yom Tovim and Pesach. She would serve them tea, cake and tea. And she would say that on the days when the Rebbe would also would not eat cake, then he would ask for sugar. And on the days that the Rebbe did eat cake, he would say he doesn't need any sugar because there's already sugar in the cake. We came here in 1954, and we came to see the Rebbe's mother. And there was a special friendship between the Rebbe's mother, the Rebbetzin Chana, and our mother from Paris, because our mother took care of her very, very well. And then there's a family relationship. Our mother was the first cousin to the Levi Yitzchak. So our mother and the Rebbetzin Chana were first cousins because her father, the Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was a Lovin Cheniga, was a brother to the Baruch Schneerson, the father of the Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, the Rebbe's father. So when we came here the first time, right after the Yechidus with the Rebbe, we went to see the Rebbetzin Chana. And she told us a story. And at that time I thought that she was telling a personal story and I never repeated it until a few years ago. And the reason I never repeated it because I thought it was a story of a personal nature. And the story was, she says that from the time she was engaged to the Levi Yitzchak and the time of the wedding, she insisted, the Rebbetzin Chana, as al onton ashlape. Ashlape is a hat. This kind of hat is called in Russian, Yiddish, it's called ashlape. And he didn't want. He wanted to wear a casquette. And it took, the negotiations, it seems, took a while. And as the Rebbetzin told the story, she put her eyes down and she said, und ich hab ausgefüllt. And I had it my way. When I heard it the first time, I wasn't going to repeat it. This is a personal story between the Rebbetzin and the Levi Yitzchok. But a few years ago, somebody writes a story that I read. And the story goes like this, that between the time of the engagement and the time of the wedding, the Rebbetzin Chana wanted that the Levi Yitzchok should wear a shlapa, and he didn't want. And there were negotiations. And he asked the Rebbe Nishmoseiden in Lubavitch what to do. And the Rebbe Nishmoseiden answered him, he should do what the Rebbetzin Chana wants. And there's no stira between the two stories. The Rebbetzin told the story as the Rebbetzin knew the story. In 1947, before the Rebbe left, he gave every member of our family a gift. Our mother, together with the Rebbetzin Soda Schneerson, the wife of Reb Schneerson Schneerson, received what my mother called a service, which means a beautiful, beautiful set of dishes. Came out of Russia, who had a set of dishes. You ate on whatever dishes were available. So, and the Rebbe would come to the house, so he saw. So the Rebbetzin bought us my mother and my aunt, a beautiful service of dishes. And I remember that mother would say to us all the time, Ihr hört, Kinder, here, children, the Rebbe had alles getan allein. The Rebbe did everything himself. And she would say it very often. Ihr hört, Kinder, der Rebbe hat alles getan allein. Allein gegangen, he went himself. Und allein ausgeklieben, and he chose the set himself. Und allein gekauft, and he bought himself. Und allein getavelt, and he took, it was a large set of dishes, and the Rebbe tabled, took all, the entire set to the mikveh himself. Und allein aufgetragen und allein gebracht. We lived on the third floor, and the Rebbe brought it up himself. And mother wanted to tell us how much the Rebbe put himself out. We should remember, Gedenkkinder, how much the Rebbe put himself out for us. When our mother passed away, Chai Oder Tovshin Chof, in 1960, the Rebbe came to be Menachem Ovel, as did the Rebbetzin Chana separately and the Rebbetzin Chaim Mushke separately. And when the Rebbe came, the Rebbe didn't daven Ma'ariv. The Rebbe sent us a message that he davens Ma'ariv in 770, but he wants to be when we daven Ma'ariv. So the Rebbe stayed there for Ma'ariv. After that, the Rebbe said a Sikha for about 20 minutes, and then the Rebbe was Menachem. I remember our father asked the Rebbe, why is it that the minhag in Chabad is 16 Kadeshim, to say 16 Kadeshim a day? And the Rebbe answered, 16 Kadeshim, because every Kaddish is for an hour and a half. And our father later said that he didn't want to be Matriach the Rebbe Chas v'Sholem. The only reason he asked the question is because the halacha is that the Menachem, the one who comes to comfort, should not be Pesach, should not start the conversation. So therefore the Ovel has to start the conversation. And therefore my father started this conversation in this manner. Everyone observed that when the Rebbe said the Pisgum Hamokim Yenachem Eschem, the Rebbe was sitting. Although there are different kind of variations, and maybe the minhag of Chabad is to stand, but the observation was that the Rebbe was sitting. Why was the Rebbe sitting? Because the Rebbe figured that if he was going to stand up, all the Avelim will also stand up. They're not going to let the Rebbe stand, and they sit. And they have to sit. And you're not allowed to tell the Ovel to sit down, because it's as if you're saying to him, again of Simchas, Shev ba'aveluscho, sit in your Avelis. So therefore, the Rebbe, to avoid everything, the Rebbe said the Hamokim Yenachem Eschem while the Rebbe was sitting. Mother should be a gute better, and we yokitzu veranenu shich a gute betten, we kitzu veranenu shich niofol, we hi besechum, Gesundheit und Fröhlichkeit tikken von Biyad Mamish. Rabbi say concerning what we mentioned before. It's the Shabbos after Purim. And you find in the Megillah that sometimes the word Yehudim is with one Yud, as the spelling Lechera should be, and sometimes Yehudim is with two Yuds. Why is it sometimes with one Yud and sometimes two Yud? And what is the significance of writing Yehudim with two Yuds? In order to get that, there is a general question, we mentioned it last week, that the Jews are called in the Megillah Yehudim, starting from Ish Yehudi. Wait a minute, Ish Yehudi. When you say Yehudi, the first thing that comes to mind is that he comes from the Shevet of Yehuda. That's why he's called Yehudi. But later, it says, Ish Yemini, he comes from the Shevet of Binyamin. So if you are asking yourself this question, does he come from the Shevet of Yehuda or the Shevet of Binyamin? You are in good company. That of the Gemara itself. And indeed, the Gemara asks the question, the Gemara in Megillah, the Gemara says, Kore le Yehudi, ilmo me Yehuda koasi. If you call him Yehudi, that means he comes from Yehuda. V'kore le Yemini, but you also call him, it says in the Megillah, Ish Yemini. Ilmo b'Binyamin koasi, so it means that he comes from Binyamin. So which is it? Does he come from Yehuda or from Binyamin? From Binyamin or from Yehuda? And the Gemara answers, Le'elo mi Binyamin koasi, that he comes from Binyamin. There's going to be a question. Ve'amai kore le Yehudi. Why is he calling him Yehudi? Yehudi, the connotation is that he is from the Shevet of Yehuda. Al shum shekofar ba'aveda zora. Because he denied Aveda Zorah, he didn't believe in Aveda Zorah, and he only believed in Yiddishkeit. And there's a Gemara called Hakefer ba'aveda Zorah kemeida b'chol ha'teira kulo. That's the Gemara that's brought here from Kedushin. And the first Gemara is from Megillah Yud Beis. And so why is he called Yehudi? Because he is Kefer in Aveda Zorah. And all Yehudim, all Jews are called Yehudim because they were Kefer in Aveda Zorah. Now to understand, this is the Rebbe's Farbrengen of Purim Tovshin Yud Beis. Ish Yehudi. And where was he? B'Shushan Habira. We all know that. The Rebbe explained, what does Ish Yehudi mean? That he was the champion of Yehudi. In other words, it's not only that he was called Yehudi. He could have said Yehudi Oya B'Shushan Habira. But it says Ish Yehudi. He was the champion of Yehudi. He was a champion of the thought that we believe in God and in God only, and we are kafir, and we deny all of Aveda Zorah. And therefore all Jews were called Yehudim. And the Rebbe here again stresses, we mentioned the question, why does it say sometimes Yehudim with two Yuds? And the previous Rebbe says in a Sikha, in the name of the Tzemach Tzedek, as why does it say a few times in the Megillah Yehudim with two Yuds, that the two Yuds go, one goes for the Yetzer Tev and one goes for the Yetzer Hora. Meaning, the Rebbe explains that we are talking about the Jews who were governed by the Yetzer Tev and the Jews who were governed by the Yetzer Hora. Ish Yehudi hoyo b'Shushan Habira. He was in Shushan Habira, Mordechai HaTzadik. And it was Ish Yehudi, he was the champion of Yehudi. He was the champion of denying Aveda Zorah and believing in God. And he was in Shushan Habira. And you can imagine, here it says the Jews in Shushan Habira. The Rebbe once said, he was speaking about somebody, And the Rebbe said, ich weiß nicht, sie hat gelegt Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. I don't know if we put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. It was before Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, but we don't know that all Jews in Shushan Abira would put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, or that they went to the mikveh every morning. And there were all kinds, especially in Shushan Abira. There were Jews that were governed by the Yetzer Tev, by one Yud, and the Jews who were governed by Yetzer Hora. Mordechai HaYehudi was the one who took care of everyone. That's the Rebbe's point. He took care of every Jew, including the Jews who were governed by the Yetzer Hora. Someone would say, what do I have to do with them? And there's a decree. I'll take care of those, of the Frume Yidden. Moreover, the Rebbe says, Haman's decree was al Yehudim with two Yuds. Because his decree was, the Rebbe says it in Yiddish, nit nur auf Frume Yidden. Haman's decree was not only on religious Jews. It's not that Haman couldn't stand religious Jews. It was more than that. His decree was on all Jews. On the Jews who were Frum and on the Jews who were not yet Frum. On all Jews. Haman did not differentiate, as the Nazis, Rahman al-Islam, did not differentiate between one Jew and another. And Haman was against all Jews. And Mordechai is the one who was Ish Yehudi, the champion of being Mekarev all Jews, including the Jew who is governed by the Yetzer Hora. And you can imagine, in Shushan Abila, there were those two. There were those two, or there were those. And Mordechai HaTzadik took care on all of them. Moreover, it says, Ki higidu le'es am Mordechai. Am Mordechai means the people, the masses. And the masses maybe had a shaykhis to the second Yud. Nevertheless, by Haman it didn't make any difference, and by Mordechai it didn't make any difference. That didn't make any difference. By Mordechai is simple, but by Haman it didn't make any difference. To him, a Jew was a Jew. And as long as he was a Ben Avraham, Yitzchak, V'Yankev, a Jew is a Jew. And here the Rebbe says, what did Mordechai gain? He mentions that it says many places, Mordechai b'deirei, k'Moshe b'deirei. Or some say that Mordechai was as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu took care of the entire Jewish people. And Mordechai was the one who cared for every single Jew. And not only that, under his leadership, every single Jew in his generation went on Mesilas Nefesh for a whole year and did not deny his Judaism. They could have said, and it said in Tera'el, and the Rebbetzin gekocht in them many times, they could have said, it doesn't mean me. It says, Kol Yehudim. I'm Persian. I'm from Heidu. I'm from Kush. I'm from Sheva ve'esrim u'meo Medino. Achashverosh had 127 Medinas. I'm from one of them, he could have said. Not one man, not one woman. And not only that, they didn't even have what's known in Halacha a machsheves chutz. They didn't even think for a moment. A korban, if you think about the korban, other things, the korban is possible. They didn't even have a machsheves chutz. That was a machsheves chutz. They should think for a moment, maybe there's a way out. It says, Yehudim, let's find a way out. No one even had a machsheves chutz, not even had an outside thought, Rahman al-Islam, to think different. And that was the leadership of Mordechai HaYehudi, of Mordechai who cared for every single Jew, like Moshe Rabbeinu cared in his generation. And the Rebbe here brings something that concerning Yerushalayim, there's a halachic concept of somuch, which means the town that is next to Yerushalayim, concerning if they have to do Purim on Yudalet or Tesvov. And there's a halachic concept called nir'eh, that you can see it. One that is close and one that you can see it. It's not close, but you can see it. And the Rebbe says that in the spiritual sense, the connection to a tzaddik and the connection to the Rebbe, sometimes it's somuch. He's close to the Rebbe. And sometimes he's not somuch, he's not close. However, near he can see. He can see the Rebbe. And the Rebbe brings that Chassidische Wort, amit auf sich halten bei der Klamke, that you should hold on. Klamke means the doorknob. And the Rebbe explains, the doorknob is on the outside, it's not on the inside. The doorknob to go in. He said, in other words, he can't even get in. He doesn't have the qualifications or whatever it takes to go inside. However, he can hold on to the klamke, to the doorknob on the outside, because he's somuch, because he's close. But sometimes he's not that close, but he's near. He can see the Rebbe, he can see the tzaddik. Although he himself is a little far, but he's near. So that's another way of his kashrus. A little remote, but he saw. He connected. And here the Rebbe says something. If not, the Rebbe would say it inside. We couldn't say it on our own. That it's the Nesiei Chabad, with all the details. The main detail here is that the Rebbe brings what the Tzemach Tzedek said. That the Alter Rebbe, and we'll soon see why the Rebbe says it in this Rabbing and put him Yud Beis. That if the Alter Rebbe would have been in the time of the Amiroim, he would be Migdei Ho Amiroim. He would be from the greatest Amiroim. And if he would be in the time of the Tanoim, says the Tzemach Tzedek about the Alter Rebbe, he would be Migdei HaTanoim, from the great Tanoim. V'ilu hoyo bisman HaNeviim, and if he would have been in the generation of the Neviim, hoyo Migdei HaNeviim, the Alter Rebbe would be from the greatest Neviim. Those generations were not to have a person like that Alter Rebbe. Why is the Rebbe saying this here? And what's the connection to Purim? And the connection the Rebbe explains is Pashtuse the Meisha b'chol dora v'dora, the extension of Meisha in every generation. The extension of Meisha is Pashtuse the Meisha b'chol dora. In the day of Mordechai, it was Mordechai. And the extension of Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation, Aderoshi Alpha Yisrael, and the Siyach Chabad. And just like the message of Mordechai in that generation was that he took care of all Jews, the Jew with one Yud and the Jew with the other Yud, the Jew who was governed by the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hora. Those who are following the Shita and the way and copying a page out of the book of Mordechai are Nesiei Chabad, who care for all Jews, not only for the Jew who is governed by the Yetzer Tov. The Jew is governed by the Yetzer Hora. The Jew is governed by the Yetzer Hora as well. I remember by Yasim Rambam a few years ago, a Rosh Yeshiva, or the Rosh Yeshiva, in the Geder Yeshiva, told a story, and he says he knows the family with whom it happened. A person was not well. He was so much not well that he expired, and he went to the world to come. But he remembered. They took him to the Bezdin, Shilmailo, and the Bezdin Shilmailo said he was not an observant man, and he should get Gehenim. Before they had a chance to make the Psak Din, a man comes in. This man later said, I never saw this man before. A man with a white beard, I never saw him before. And he said, what are you doing? Why are you judging him in Gehenim? It's not his fault. He's a Tinik Shenishbo. He was born to parents who did not give him a Jewish education. So what do you want from him? What do you expect him? He did what the environment did. The parents didn't give him a Jewish education. He grew up on the street. So this is how he is. send them back to this world, and give him a chance to have a Jewish education, and then you can judge him. He remembers all of this. And after that, he became better, and he recuperated. He remembered all this, so he says now what he has to do is become an observant Jew. So he figured, where is he going to get the connection? In the nearest Chabad house. Comes into the nearest Chabad house. Before he has a chance to do anything, he sees a picture of the Rebbe, and he fainted. When he woke up, or when they woke him up, he said, this is the man whom I saw. So the Gedol of Yeshiva said he knows the family. He knows with whom it happened. The Rebbe's have the opinion that you got to take care of all Jews. And you have to go out of your way to say good about them. They're Tenekesh and Nishbu. You can't blame them. So therefore, all Jews, the Jews were governed by one Yud, or the Jews governed by the other Yud. And as Nesiei Chabad they say him from the Alter Rebbe on, who made this a cornerstone of their philosophy and of their way of life. And that's what the Rebbe says, Pulim Tovshin Yud Beis. Zochad Aleinu, Rebbe say. We are fortunate that we are the last generation of Golus, the first generation of Geulah. And as the Rebbe told us so many times, that this is going to be the generation that is going to see Yemiyat Hashem, the coming of Mashiach, with our very, very own eyes. But there are still a little bit of residue from the Golus, a little bit of Pachim Ktanim, of small vessels that we still have to take care of. So now is the time, Alay Chappen, because the Rebbe tells us, when Mashiach comes, and he's coming now, with Membenken, we're going to long after those years. We're going to say to ourselves, we want back the years of Golus for one reason, so we can do something about it. So we can do something more to bring Mashiach closer. But Mashiach is here already. So therefore now, just a few moments, a few seconds before his coming, now is the time to put the finishing touches on the Golus, and to go out together, all Jews. Zochot Ereinu. Our generation was the one who was meritorious, that we are the last generation of Golus and the first generation of Geulah. And our generation will see, the Rebbe tells us, the Geulah hu amiti v'ashlema, the real Geulah with our very own eyes. Uv'agolo didanu v'simcha uv'tu levov uv'teva nira v'aniglo u'lamata me'asar l'tvochim uv'chesed uv'rachamim v'tekef u'miyad mamesh.